Hey guys, Magnet back here for another episode of Q&A. This is episode 3 from February 11th, 2015. And we got a lot more questions to go over today, so let's not waste any more time and we'll just go ahead and jump right into it. So you can see the first question here on the screen is, hey Magnet, I'm in Gold League and I've lost to Zerg players a lot because they did pool first. How can I counter that? It quickly becomes a mess as soon as they pull their drones and they do a full rush. Can you help me? This is a unusual question, namely because I don't know your race, and I would normally link this with a video that would explain it that was appropriate to your race. So I'm just going to show you guys really quickly, if you're looking to just look up videos that I have, especially that's race specific or situation specific, you can go to this. Let me get it on the screen here for you. If you just go to my channel, which is youtube.com, or you can just do it this way. We'll just say YouTube search Magnet Starcraft. And click on this, which should be the first result. And on this front page, I actually have a whole bunch of stuff here that is appropriate for every race. So there's one for Terran, one for Zerg, and one for Protoss. So chances are, if you have a strategy question, it's much better going to be answered in a video like this because you can watch a replay that pertains exactly to what you want to know. It's a lot better than me just talking about it or typing in a comment. So just for future reference, if you have any strategic questions specifically, I would check here first because you're going to get a lot better answer from these videos. So let me switch back to a view where we can see everything that's supposed to be going on. So yeah, that'll basically answer that. Another annoying thing about this is that sometimes I can't reply to your comments for whatever reason, the whole Google Plus thing, which I definitely don't really use, so whatever. Alright, this person asks, hey Magnet, in ZVP how do you deal with storms? Every time I face storms in ZVP I lose. I usually go Roach Hydra and then get Vipers for Colossus. So you definitely do have to mold your composition based upon what you're going up against. And one of the best ways to get rid of storms is to use swarm hosts. But I don't know how long this is going to stick around, namely because the swarm hosts have been changed so much. But the idea is that Locusts will power through a lot of the ground army pretty quickly. And if they're replacing their Colossus things with Storm, then the swarm hosts will really chew through it. If you're having problems with storms still, you might want to investigate going for something like Ultralisks because the storms are pretty useless against it. But the ultimate way to deal with that is just to try to keep your units outside of where they're storming if you possibly can. So kind of move forward a little bit, try to make them waste storms and then move out of it. Alright, as Zerg, should I camp with roaches, for example, and wait for a warp prism inside my base to make a massive warp in of zealots to kill them? Or is it not damaging enough to Protoss player in late game to try? Should I rather try to deny drops altogether? So if they're at the stage where they're just warping in tons of zealots and it's a late game, it usually means that they have minerals to spend on that they don't really care about. A lot of the late game armies from Protoss are going to be gas dependent. So if they're spending minerals on putting zealots in your base, you should strongly consider using your minerals to put up static defenses to protect your bases and your tech. You really can't go wrong with a lot of spines and spores at each mining base. Not a ton, obviously not enough to eat into your worker count too much or your army count, and obviously repopulate the drones once you put up the static defenses, and plus it won't eat into your supply. So I would just go for static defenses in pretty much any case, especially as the game goes later and later as Zerg. You should just have static defenses everywhere, especially against Protoss. This person says, can you explain about game tempo? How to choose when to expand and attack? For Protoss, if it is different from race to race. So a really general way to talk about game tempo is that you need to understand what you can get away with. StarCraft is all about a game of not necessarily taking chances, but kind of knowing the boundaries and where you can push the boundaries a little bit. So that's why when you see pros play, if you watch pro games, they'll go like Command Center first a lot, or they'll go Nexus first against Zerg, and that's because they know they can get away with that kind of stuff, and it accelerates the game tempo to a point that favors them because their opponent won't be able to react to what they're seeing in time. So generally, as far as expanding goes, I would try to build it into a habit to expand as soon as you possibly can, while keeping in mind the travel time across the map from your opponent, and what your opponent could possibly have out at those times, and just see where you can start pushing the boundaries as far as taking faster and faster bases. As far as attacking, you have to kind of keep an eye on your opponent and see when he would be vulnerable. There's no real solid timing when I can just say, yeah, go attack. In general, you should attack, or at least be seeking to, when you max out. The other option would be to start dumping units that are less valuable so you can replace them with more powerful units once you max out. But if you're going for this like tempo play where you're trying to get way ahead in workers and therefore way ahead in economy, and therefore you'll have a bigger army faster, and you max out and just sit there, then you're getting to a point where you get your big advantage and then you don't do anything with it. So if you're looking for general idea as far as when to expand, it's just as soon as you possibly can. I would try expanding off of 1 or 2 units in pretty much every matchup, and then if you start losing to things, see how quickly they put up their buildings. Say like they put up a 10 pool or something, and you tried to go, you know, Mothership Core and then Nexus. You'd have to be able to scout those things out and make adjustments, but generally you want to try to expand as fast as possible. And attacking is basically whenever you feel like you have a bigger army for whatever reason, or whenever you hit like upgrades and stuff that are finishing, or whenever important tech comes out that he can't deal with right then, that's when you're going to want to seek to attack. But at bare minimum, when you max out, you should be looking for a fight, assuming you were ahead in economy. So this person says, have you ever heard about Buddha's Starcraft pyramid? I thought it was a really useful tool as to what to look out for first in any replay of a game you lost, and thought it really suited your approach or philosophy to the game. So I've seen a lot of the pyramid type of stuff, and all I can really say is a lot of them kind of copy each other, and they're mostly kind of talking about the same philosophy, and that is that the reason you lose a game is primarily because you just don't have enough money, whether that's due to not having enough workers, or not expanding fast enough, or not spending your money, or something like that. I don't know about pyramids because they kind of just seem like a gimmick that somebody put together and everyone just sort of copied it because it got popular. I mean, I have a video about how to analyze replays. I think it's number 4 or 5, I can't remember, in the How to Be a Better Starcraft Player. And I lay out some general rules to look out for if you ever wanted to review replays. But generally, make sure you're mining as much as possible. Then you can start looking at things like scouting and making sure you're reacting properly to your opponent. Stuff like that, but I explain it all in that video. This person says they run Colossus and PvZ when they're going for Roach Hydra or Swarm Host. Excuse me. What Zerg will do most of the time, like you have said, is either go Muta, Corruptors, or Viper to counter. Pretty good at getting Phoenix or Void Ray for the right unit composition. However, I've died a lot because they will switch from Muta to Corruptor or vice versa, and it's too late to switch back. Is this just scouting, or is this just keeping up with scouting, or should I supplement with both types of unit compositions? So, generally, the ideal scenario is that you always have the right unit composition to answer your opponent, but once it gets to late game PvZ, you need to be aware that if you're not keeping the pressure on the Zerg in the sense that you're forcing trades all the time, then you're giving them that liberty to switch kind of however they want. And if that's the case, you need to just have 3+ Stargates ready to go in the super late game, so that anytime you fight, whether you win or lose, I just start making Phoenix, maybe up to like 6, and try to figure out what he's refilling on. That's a big deal in PvZ, is figuring out what they're remaking after a fight happens. And if you have all the infrastructure to switch back and forth between whatever you want, like legitimately in any late game scenario, and I'll kind of extend this further than what you need to know, but legitimately in any late game scenario, you want to have production for every possible outcome. So in late game PvZ, you need to be thinking about, what if they resupply on like Ultralisks and I don't figure it out in time? Or what if they resupply on like 50 mutas and I don't figure it out in time? You should have the infrastructure for that ready to go for either scenario. So once you do know, you can at least catch up. So it may seem silly, but even like 3, 4, 5 Stargates, once you're at super deep late game in pretty much every matchup, and maybe 2 or 3 Robos or something crazy like that, just to be sure that you can respond to whatever your opponent might bring out. And obviously Zerg is the biggest concern here. But yeah, I mean, I would just make sure you have the infrastructure first, and every time you win a fight, just start making Phoenix or making whatever you think you're gonna be countered by. And if they stop, or if they don't do what you're expecting, say they refill on Roach Hydra, and you just make 3 Phoenix before you figure that out, it's not a big deal. It's 3 Phoenix, and at least you can still have some utility, whether it's protecting your Colossus or whatever. This person says they love Starcraft. I've always wanted to make videos about it. Do you need any help with video editing or just production? I would love to help. I get people asking me this every once in a while, and for the most part, I try to set up my videos so it's as minimal maintenance as possible. I have very formulaic ways of making videos, and you can see that I prefer to do them all in just one take, which is why you don't see me editing a lot of my videos, and if I do, it's typically because I'm kind of releasing like a special series or something. But I can make like a 25-minute video in 25 minutes and then post it to YouTube and walk away. That's much more ideal for me than spending like 4 or 5 hours for a 6-minute video, which is common for what I do for some of my more special series. So for right now, I'm going to say no. I don't need any help with any of that kind of stuff, but if it becomes an issue, then I'll definitely revisit it. This person asked a really general question. What's a good time to get a robotics facility in all the matchups? I think if you're asking questions like this, you really need to start seeking toward coming into each game and each matchup with a plan. So like, you need to come into a game against a Terran and say like, I really want to get Colossus out on 2 bases, and then I want to see what happens, or I want to take a 3rd base, or I want to attack him and try to kill him. Sorry, my face is really itchy today. It's a giant beard. So basically you need to have a fortified plan to what you want to do to each game. And honestly, at lower levels, your plan can be almost anything, as long as you have a decent way of developing it. So if you want to get like Blink Stalkers, then get Blink Stalkers, but you need to be wary of what that could be weak to, such as, you know, say Mind Drops or something like that that could be problematic later on. In Protoss versus Protoss, you couldn't stay on Blink forever because Stalkers get useless. So I mean, you need to be thinking about what's my plan going into this matchup, and try to find a decent way to get there as far as stuff that makes sense and stuff that answers things that your opponent could be bringing. So generally, if you're wondering this, your robotics facility is typically going to dictate either a careful approach to detection for observers and scouting and stuff like that, or it could be the center of your tech, and it's just totally different but depending on what your plan is in the game. So there's no general good time, but I would say try to gear it more towards figuring out what you want to do against each opponent. Hello from Spain. I was almost going to mimic that emoticon, but I'd look like an idiot. They said, I love your videos, they're great, thank you so much. Learning a lot and growing up to better leagues thanks to you. I would thank you so much if you tell me what websites do you use for downloading the replays. I want to watch those that you play. Actually, it would be a very good idea to add the link down in the description to the sources of each one of the replays. Thank you so much for everything. I hope you keep making videos like this. Like I don't know if I mentioned this already. I keep kind of stockpiling what I want to say in one big like overarching video. So we're going to address these just one at a time. First, almost all the replays you're going to see in a lot of my videos are from WCS. So I'm going to open up this page again and show you guys where to get all the replays that I'm getting. So if you just search WCS 2014 replays, you can do it by season as well. It's seasons 1 through 3. You'll start seeing results here from battle.net. So in this case, this is season 3 replay release as well as the global finals. Kind of topically relevant, but basically you're going to go to a screen like this. It'll be on battle.net's replays, and you can typically click on something that will download a zip that has all of them. So if you want way more replays than you know what to do with, search for that, and that's typically what you're going to get. As far as, let me switch back to this really quick. As far as my own replays, I'm getting a lot of people asking me to do that, but I've kind of mentioned this a little bit before in the sense that typically when I play, I don't play to be super standard. I play to kind of bend the rules and try weird stuff. So I don't know that that's really fair to to give people like information on what I'm doing, because what I'm doing could totally not work, and then to give people the wrong impression, and they kind of get led down the wrong road. A lot of people also ask to link the replays in the description as far as where to download it. That's a lot of maintenance, and not only that, a lot of the videos that people ask for this on, which again you can see what video it is by looking right here. So this is on one of my how to play Zerg videos, defending Terran harass apparently. But the point being is that this video is recorded a long time ago, and it would take me a long time to go back and get all those replays for each one. So I would generally say that almost all of my Heart of the Swarm, how to play each race videos, the replays from that are from WCS 2014 Season 1. So download the replay pack from there, and then you can see the players in the game, you can see the matchups, you can even look it up on Google or Team Liquid to see what league it was from and where you can look for it in the folders. But yeah, I kind of ran out of steam, but whatever. Hey Magnet, I bought the game like 2 weeks ago and I recently finished my placement matches, ended up in Platinum, but I keep getting thrown against high diamond and master players, losing the vast majority of games of course. On the other hand, I don't seem to be losing any ladder points for my bonus pool. The games I lose by simply getting out macros and not being able to keep up with the drops and harassment, considering my APM is around 80 at the moment. Do you have any idea what's going on with my matchmaking and what I can do to take advantage of it as far as improvement as a player is concerned? I play Zerg, by the way. Thank you. Matchmaking is going to be a little weird right now because there's not a ton of players actively playing, since the interest in Starcraft is kind of overall just waiting for Legacy of the Void to be released, so you might get matched up against really erratic competition. From game to game, when I was playing ladder maybe like a month ago, I would notice I would get placed against somebody like Grandmaster, and then the next couple games I'd get placed against somebody in Platinum. So it's just all over the place. Part of it's because their matchmaking is a little weird right now. I don't know if it's really programmed to handle a lower player population than what they had when they released. So I would just play. If you're losing by people just outworking you, ask them what you think that they can, or rather, ask them what they think you can do better for the next game. Try to just garner as much information from players that are better than you, and that's such a huge difference no matter what game you're trying to get good at. Whether it's Starcraft or League or Smash or whatever, if you just ask people that are good at the game what you're doing wrong, they can usually offer some pretty good advice. This person says, a buddy recently bought me Starcraft 2. I watched the game in the past, and I did play Brood War a fair bit, but my question is, with all the changes coming to Legacy of the Void, should I just wait before getting too serious into learning everything about the game? I don't know. It's up to you. I mean, the differences between Heart of the Swarm and Legacy of the Void are going to be mostly tempo-based. You'd get a lot of just base information off of units that are still going to be in the game, like Marines, which are made in basically every matchup for Terran, or Stalkers, which are also made in pretty much every matchup. If you get more comfortable with those, then you'll have a little bit of a leg up from where you would be in Legacy of the Void. But I just say whatever you feel like. There's definitely no harm in just going in and playing the game now just to start learning. And then Legacy of the Void will change quite a bit, but a lot of the base units and base mechanics will still be the same, so it's not a big deal. This person says, and this was an interesting question by the way, StarCraft 2 is similar to chess, my guess. So openers intend to have preset transitions, so is there a tree with all this information? Also, after scouting time, if the transitions for a specific opener would be countered, can it cost the early game? So there are trees of reactions, but it's like that with any game. There's always trees of reactions depending on infinity variables. So mostly what you need to do is you need to start establishing your own tree of reactions to see what you like better. So for example, let's go really far back in time, back to when a strategy called the 1-1-1 was really popular in Terran versus Protoss. This was so bad to the point that they changed units and they tried to patch it out of the game as hard as they possibly could because it was so strong. And basically the strategy was the Terran they'd tech up to Banshees really fast, they'd start doing harassment, and then they'd pull a bunch of SCVs, they'd have like 3 or 4 tanks, a whole bunch of Marines, and like a few Banshees, and they'd kill every Protoss ever. Like Terran players just won championships with this one build. Puma, by the way, if you were wondering, who was the player that kind of rode it the hardest. But the point being is that even though you knew that build was coming every single time, there wasn't one transition that would answer it properly. There was like 5, and it all came down to what you were the most comfortable with and what you could execute the best. So for example, when I was fighting that, I really liked to research charge, because then you would make the most inexpensive units on the field do the most damage to their ground army. So the Marines would get shredded, the tanks would hit their own army, the tanks would be worthless pretty fast, and I thought it was pretty good. Obviously there are some downsides to that, such as it's very vulnerable to a lot of different timings. Some people like to rush Colossus, some people like to get Immortals out, some people like to go for a DT transition and snipe their Raven that they would often bring, or I mean, they'd only be on one command center, so they would have a finite number of scans. Some people would like to get Blink and just pick the thing apart as it came across the map. There's a whole bunch of different things that people would like to do and that were reasonably successful, and by reasonably I mean each of them had about like a 40% success rate, considering it was really strong back when it was prevalent. But the point is that they would just see these scenarios and they would say, okay, I lost. But if I sit here and think about this, if I could make one little change, how good would it be? And then try that out on the next game, and then you're going to come up with your own set of transitions based upon what you like to do. So there's not any sort of tree as far as like what you should absolutely do no matter what. It really just comes down to you getting a feel for what's coming and identifying it early enough and making your own reactions based upon what you think is cool. And really, if you think about it, that's what makes this game rewarding, is being able to see the same thing 5 different times through 5 different people's set of eyes, and they'll all have different solutions that can all work. So it's really a rewarding aspect of the game, of being able to see a situation and say, I think this will probably work. And then when it actually does work, you're like, man, I'm so smart. So that's what I would say about that. This person asked a really general question, and it's a pretty valid one. I don't think I've really addressed too much. And they said, how do you think Legacy of the Void Zerg versus Mech will pan out? This is weird. So lurkers are going to be pretty useless against Mech because they're mostly a tool to zone out bio armies, which I do think will encourage more Mech. The thing about this, though, is that you guys got some really cool tools for this, and it's not only tools just to start whittling away at the army, it's tools to counterattack and stuff like that you haven't had before. And those things can be like Nidus worms that are invulnerable while they're building, they can be the flying locusts from the swarm hosts, or if they're really entrenched, you can punish them for having a lot of really bad siege tank positioning, or maybe having to split their army to only a couple siege tanks on one side and just bomb the tanks with your Ravagers. So overall, it's not going to be anything like Heart of the Swarm was, because Heart of the Swarm Mech versus Zerg, Terrans would literally just sit there forever and ever and ever and get in a million Ravens and a million tanks and then just have this one big death army that would kill them. And that's usually what Mech is about. But it became so boring because on the other side, all Zerg could really do is rally Locusts in there endlessly, and there wasn't really a solution. So I think Zerg versus Mech is actually going to be one of the coolest matchups in the game, and there should be multiple ways to deal with it, and we'll have to just kind of wait to see how it's all going to break down. But I think at the end of the day, you're probably going to have about 4 reasonable routes to start picking it apart, and it will have to be mostly kind of a picking it apart type of approach. Okay, this is a comment, I believe, in Spanish, or it could be Portuguese, I'm not sure. Pretty sure it's Spanish, and what they're asking is if I can put subtitles on my videos. Like I mentioned, and this is probably lost on somebody that says it's easier to learn English, but I know I do have a lot of foreign viewers. I am getting people interested in dubbing over my videos into a different language, particularly Russian is the one offer that I've had so far. And I'm open to doing stuff like that as long as your intentions really are to just provide it to a market that doesn't have it. You're not going to make any money doing anything like this, but if you're really interested in helping out Starcraft and helping out your region getting better information and stuff, I'm totally for that. And this may be a situation where a person like this could have benefited from videos being dubbed in Spanish. I obviously can't go back and subtitle everything in every language because the whole video would be a mess. It'd be covered in, all kinds of different languages, and obviously I don't know those languages, so yeah, so just to kind of throw that out there. That's it. Thanks for watching. Of course, if you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them in next week's episode, assuming that I haven't already answered them in previous ones, or assuming they're also not answered better in a strategy video or something like that. So if you have any questions, it can be about anything. It can be about Starcraft, it can be about other games, it can be about video games in general, game design. I am a game design student who's going to be graduating very soon. So yeah, any questions you guys have, leave them down there, let me know, I'll get to them. Otherwise, I'll see you guys real soon with more videos. Thanks for watching, thanks for hanging out, take care.